It's in your office. It's like hiding out.
Let's call the meeting to order. Please stand and pledge the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rita, call roll, please.
Commissioner Ganger?
Here.
Commissioner Stanley?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Here.
Mayor Morgan?
Here.
And let the record show that Attorney Randolph and Town Manager Kreischer are also present.
Okay, minutes have been distributed for the regular meeting of April 11, 2014, and the special meetings of April 14 and April 29. Any corrections? Motion to approve?
Move approval of all minutes.
Second. Rita?
Commissioner Ganger?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Any additions?
We
Changes?
have one addition. It will be added as item 7A2. It's a report, it's a final report from the ad hoc committee.
Thank you. Under announcements, our next meeting is June 13th. Anyone have a schedule difficulty? No? Good. Moving on, with resignation of the special magistrate. We have in our packet the resignation of our previous magistrate. Rita, would you
Want me to read it?
read that, please? Let's get around.
Okay. It says, it has been a pleasure serving as the special magistrate for the town of Gulfstream. Please let this letter serve as formal notice that the firm is resigning as special magistrate effective April 30th, 2014, and it's signed Glenn J. Torcivia, Esquire.
Thank you. And we'll take that matter up with his replacement later. Under communications, Mr. Hager.
He's not here, and this is not uncommon. He runs from meeting to meeting.
Okay.
And I would recommend that we just simply suspend at a point. I don't think that's his car, but, and then just
Sure.
let him get in and out.
That's fine. Let's move on then to Mr. Bortman, the ad hoc committee report.
Good morning. We had the final meeting, what we think is the final meeting of our committee yesterday, so you received your materials this morning. And I know you probably not had a significant opportunity to look at them. On the other hand, I'm not going to stand here and read to you what we presented to you in writing anyway, with one exception. The report is in two parts. A general information textual part, which we've headed as the introduction, and then a specific list of the items that we are recommending be considered. First, the Architectural Planning and Review Board, and then secondly, if they see fit, by you as the commission. I have been before you before discussing the, briefly in response to Bob Ganger's question at the last meeting, some of the procedures we followed in forming the committee. I think the significant one is that we did survey virtually all of the residents and asked them for comments as to items specifically in the design code that perhaps needed our attention, or of equal importance, the processes that are being utilized in implementing the design manual. That letter went to approximately 500 households. As we indicated to you, we had approximately 8 initial responses, followed by 2 or 3 that trickled in afterwards. It was clear from both the election and the response to that committee that, clear to the committee that there was no desire on the part of the community to do away with the design manual or significantly reduce its size and impact. We spent We spent our meeting time dealing with the specific issues that were raised. There were also specific issues on a list that the town staff had prepared from their experience. We also received communications from the chairman of the Architectural Review and Planning Board. And as I say, you have a list of the suggestions we are making coming back to that board. The one that I would highlight, and I think it's clearly the one of the most significance, is a suggestion that a waiver provision be put into the code in the portion relating to the design manual. The feeling that we had was that the requirement for variances was so strict that perhaps there were a series of proposals on the part of residents which may not be in exact conformity with the design manual, but were relatively minor in nature and relatively specific in nature, would not do harm to the community generally if waived, and therefore there should be a waiver provision of the type that you'll see discussed in that list. I think one of the most important things about the waiver provision is while it sets forth a list of, I think, 6 criteria, the board and the commission are not required to grant the waiver if those criteria are met. They should be met, but boards and the commission will continue to have complete discretion as to whether or not to grant the waiver. One section I would like to read to you, because as we went through this process, it became very clear to us, and perhaps you will find this as no great revelation, but a great number of the comments came from Place au Soleil. And it became very clear to us that is, in many respects, a different situation over there. And we had some sort of editorial feelings about that, which I would like to read because, you know, we all participated in the preparation of this document. There are a few observations that the committee wishes to make that are not in the category of formal recommendations. The committee, throughout the process, became ever increasingly aware that Place au Soleil is a bit of a community unto itself. It is the committee's consensus that effort should be increased to understand and respect that PAS is different than the other parts of Gulfstream on the Barrier Island. It is very different than the core area, and steps should be taken to have a continuing dialogue with the PAS Homeowners Association so that the Commission and the ARPB will understand the desires of the great majority of the residents of PAS. There is no apparent reason why PAS can't have requirements that their residents desire. The problem is that there is no established way for the feelings of the silent majority to express their views. For example, in the course of the committee's work, a resident of PAS sent out a blast email to well over 50 residents, closer to 70, of PAS asking them to communicate to us on an issue. The committee received about 10 communications of some sort. One we weren't able to help because it dealt with closing the railway exchange over there behind Costco or behind Walmart. The committee received about 10 communications of some sort. The dilemma is that in situations such as this, one does not know where the other 90 residents of PAS stand. The PAS representative on the commission and the PAS Homeowners Association could and should serve a very valuable role. Specific items, while still consistent with the general Gulfstream approach, could be custom fitted to the PAS community when a clear majority view is expressed by proper representatives. The other item I would highlight is the last full paragraph, which I won't read, but generally the message there is that we need to work very hard at the communication between the town staff and the residents of the community when it comes to implementing our architectural standards. It became clear to the community in this process that some items which people perceive as problems with the design code could well be problems in communication between the staff and our residents. So we have set forth some ideas in there about possible ways to improve that communication. And one of those is that perhaps there be an ombudsman, a voluntary position on someone's part willing to accept. That would help bridge some of these discussions when design code issues do come up, which seem to be creating some friction or seem to be creating an individual situation that needs some hands-on attention. So I want to commend this to you. At the same time, I want to thank the committee tremendously. We had three professional representatives on our committee in addition to Patsy and I, and they all did really a great job of going through this. You end up with a limited number of suggestions, but that doesn't reflect the number of discussions that took place about things which then there was not a suggestion upon. In fact, I think we spent more time on those than we did on the ones that you see. It was a pleasure to serve, and if there are any questions, Patsy or I would be happy to answer.
Well, I think on behalf of the town, Bill, to you and Patsy and the other members of your committee, we express our gratitude, our thanks for the efforts you put into this committee. It was challenging work, I hope interesting work. I know just from what you said today that it's going to be very helpful work. So please express our gratitude to the other members of your committee. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Boardman? Comments?
I would say that in terms of implementing some of the recommendations, the sooner we get onto it, the faster, the better it is, and hope that at least one or two of you could be available to us at the point in time in which we're actually deciding on any changes to the design code, to the manual, to the process, or anything else. You've been the ones that are listening the closest, and we're up here, but in the final analysis, it's up to us to decide what changes, if any, we're going to make. And we don't want to do that without full understanding of not only the content, but the texture of what you went through. I'm very aware that a lot of your discussion wasn't necessarily personal, but it was essentially listening to people, and people sometimes have different tone in terms of how strongly they feel about something. We got to get this right, and you guys have done a terrific job. Unfortunately, because it just came, I've only had a chance to scan it. But I think at our very next meeting, we should take it up as a top agenda priority item.
We were under the idea or direction that these recommendations were then going to the ARPB for their consideration, sorting out, adding to, and then ultimately to the commission.
That is correct.
Yeah, but
That is, they will go before the ARPD and then come to us.
right, but I mean,
I just want to personally thank Bill for serving as chairman. I know it wasn't an easy job, and for Patsy to serve on the committee too. You guys did a great job. Thank you.
We're both available anytime for questions.
thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Bill. Well, we're honored here today to have our state representative, Mr. Hager. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and good morning. Town Council members, it's a pleasure to be here before you. I'm here, I requested this opportunity for the simple reason that the state legislature just completed its work for the current year. My name is Bill Hager, and I represent House District 89. House District 89 starts in Boca Raton, hugs the coast, the Atlantic coast, all the way up to the town of West Palm Beach, picks up as well the West Palm Beach and the town of Palm Beach, and Singer Island as well. That is the district. We just completed the legislative session. You know that the Florida legislature is part-time. We meet only 60 days out of the year. That's it. That's by design. The design is so that people of commerce, people of trades, people of vocations can serve in the legislature, which of course was the underlying concept of our founding fathers when they put this democracy together. Here is the report from the legislature for this year. Number one, we balanced the budget. We have a ethic, a principle at the state legislature. It's very simple. We do not spend $1 more than comes in the front door. That's it. And during the recession, there was about $15 billion less in revenue that came in the front door. We did not call up China for a loan. We did not issue debt bonds. We cut spending $15 billion. In the most recent year, this year, as the economy has recovered, we had a budget of about $76 billion or so. That was the incoming revenue, and we allocated it. Part of the allocation was a $500 million reduction in taxes for the people of this state. Along those lines, you know Florida has no personal income tax. In the last 4 years, under the leadership of Governor Scott, we have reduced taxes on business 70%. And by that I mean 70% of the businesses in Florida now pay no business tax. Our goal is to drive that number to 0. And the goal for that is very, very simple, and that is people and businesses increasingly vote with their feet, and they come to places where job creation, the job creators, the successful, the opportunists, those that want opportunity are rewarded, as opposed to states where such behavior, success, is punished. A good example of that point is Toyota. As you know, in the last 3 or 4 days, Toyota folded up its tent. It's bailing out of, leaving the state of California, which has confiscatory regulation, which has exceedingly high taxes. They are bringing their jobs, that production facility, which is massive, to a competing state of ours, state of Texas, where there is no business tax, where there's no personal income tax, and where there is reasonable regulation. So we continue to focus on that, because what we want for the 20 million people in this state is optimum opportunity, optimum economic opportunity, and that opportunity arises, as Adam Smith told us 250 years ago, in places where government facilitates opportunity as opposed to impeding it or standing in its way. From an economic standpoint, the last 4 years, 500,000 jobs or so have been created. We've allocated $1 billion to our ports, including the Port of Palm Beach, and we've done so because the Panama Canal is doubling in size, which means huge freighters are going to be coming there. We have a dozen ports in this state, and we've allocated that money to upgrade those ports to be receptors for incoming freight and depots for departing freight. Florida is now ranked number 2 in the United States as a place to start and grow a business. That means opportunity for all of our people. We continue to attract people from all over the world, particularly in South America, where the Castro brothers continue to undermine democracies there, and places like Venezuela, Bolivia, Central America, with leftist government, people with means, people with wealth, people with business acumen who are leaving those countries. They're bringing all of those facilities to their favorite spot, is the state of Florida, where we welcome them and welcome their acumen as this state moves forward. In terms of allocation in the area, allocation appropriations were made for the Kravis Center, the Norton Museum of Art, Palm Beach Drama Works, Palm Beach Opera, Palm Beach Zoo, South Florida Science Museum, among other things. That is to say, area facilities that deserve our support. I continue to work on beach renourishment. I spent 7 years on the City Council of Boca Raton, and I'm very familiar with beach issues, beach renourishment issues. We were successful in a number of areas in Palm Beach in terms of allocation for beach renourishment. A bill that I worked as well was related to the sober homes, which have created mayhem in many of our neighborhoods. The bill that I authored passed out of 4 committees in the House, passed the floor of the House. Unfortunately, it died on the Senate side. I will be back next year with that same bill. And the key on the sober home bills is pretty simple, and that is the federal Americans with Disability Act, the Federal Housing Act, both define, among other things, disabilities to include drug addiction. And that means you cannot regulate these sober homes in any fashion other than a ordinary residence. And so it's really an issue of threading the needle in terms of the legislation. The legislation that I brought forward was written with constitutional lawyers to make sure we got that done. Anyway, it did not pass the Senate. We'll go back right back at it. That's a very brief summary. You have a packed agenda, a packed house, so I'll be happy to field any questions or concerns. I'm not suggesting this was all inclusive, but anecdotal of some of the key points. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Town Council members.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Hager?
Bill, will the same Senate author try again, or will that be done by somebody else at the Senate level next year?
To be determined, but we'll probably use additional resources next year.
And I was just curious, Mr. Hager, how saving $15 billion to balance that budget must have been a Herculean task.
It was a challenge, but just like everybody in this room, just like every business, just like every family, when you have a decrease in income or revenue, you adjust your spending. And we adjusted spending across the board, and we did it because it was our responsibility. The state carries no debt except bonding debt, that is toll facilities and the like, so there is no unsupported debt in this state. And we continue to balance the budget, we continue to be committed to it, and at the same time are proactive with the facilities that count. Our K-12 system, Mayor, is ranked 6th in the United States. Let me repeat that because there's always a lot of goofy, inaccurate information about our public school system. Public school system, K-12 system in the state of Florida, in contrast to the balance of the 50 states, ranks number 6 in the United States. And we've done an excellent job. We have great state universities. We have among the lowest tuition in the United States, $5,500 at the state universities. The state colleges, the tuition is about $3,300, which means that any kid that can find a job and put $10 a day away and sleep on mom's couch can get a degree without any debt. We are committed to the future of the state. We've put rails in place, SLED in place, and infrastructure that can permit the state to boom across the next 100 years, and that's our responsibility as public officials.
Very good. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.
Okay. Public comments. Mr. O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris O'Hare. I'd like to comment on Mr. Boardman's report. He is correct that the Plaza Soleil is a little different than the rest of the town. One thing it has in common with the rest of the town is it's subject to certain vaguenesses in the code. Probably the most egregious vagueness is the fact that any improvements to the town need to comply with the neighborhood, but not too much because we don't want a cookie-cutter neighborhood. Those vaguenesses result in mandated regulations that aren't spelled out in the code but nevertheless impact homeowners. For instance, I wanted a smooth garage door, but it's not allowed. I'm not sure why. It doesn't match the neighborhood, but it does. But I would recommend that the HOA really be involved in any regulations that have to do with modifying the code in regard to Plaza Soleil. There's one other thing about the comments made about a blast email. I'm the author. That was a reply to the Homeowners Association email sent to me, which has the list of all the people in it. It's no more than a reply. It wasn't a blast email. I'm not even sure what that means. I did modify it to include Mr. Morgan's email just to keep you in the loop. Enough on that. The second item I wanted to mention is I've done a lot of public record requests. Some people don't like that. I know it's irritating. It's time for town staff It is a constitutional right, and I encourage everybody to take advantage of that right because there's a whole lot of records that are really interesting to read. Part of my discoveries, well, the one most pertinent today is I need to bring to your attention, your public records contain the private address of police officers, everyone's social security number, a lot of other personal data that should not be out there. It's a risk to your employees. The first thing Mr. Thrasher should do today after this meeting is get those off the public record. That's state law. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which is our Board of Adjustment hearing on the appeal of Mr. O'Hare's home at 2520 Avenue off Select. Who will be representing Mr. O'Hare?
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Lou Rader. I represent Mr. O'Hare on this appeal decision of the town administrator. More specifically, my client is appealing the town's decision to deny his application for a solar sandwich metal roof. We were informed that the permit was denied, and I quote, because the town's code of ordinances expressly prohibits metal roofs within the town, within section 70-99 sub B and section 70-187. As such, metal roofs are not permitted under the town code, end quote. It is our position that the town's denial is simply wrong. Why? Because the decision of the town administrator is preempted by state statute, it's preempted by interlocal agreement, and preempted by the town's code itself. First, how is the decision preempted by the town's code? The town's administrator has taken the position that both section 70-99 sub 3 and 7187 prohibit metal roofs. That's simply not true. While section 7090-30 sub 3 prohibits metal roofs, section 70-187-2 allows metal roofs under certain conditions. And according to section 70-186 sub B, section 7187 preempts 7099, meaning that metal roofs are allowed. How is the decision preempted by interlocal agreement? Minor's staff report addresses what he erroneously perceives to be construction issues regarding my client's permit application. According to the September 2009 interlocal agreement between the city of Delray Beach and the town of Gulfstream, that's an agreement for the provision of building permitting and inspection services, the permitting tasks are bifurcated between the city and the town. According to section 2 sub B sub 2A of that interlocal agreement, quote, plans shall be reviewed by the town for compliance to the town's zoning code and other non-construction compliance. Since many of the issues raised by the town's consultant are construction compliance issues, they are issues that fall within the purview of the city of Delray Beach Building Department, not the town of Gulfstream. How is the decision preempted by state statute? According, to paraphrase, according to chapter 163.04 sub 1, an ordinance by a governing body which prohibits or has the effect of prohibiting the installation of energy devices based on renewable resources is expressly prohibited. Chapter 193.624 sub 1 sub A defines what are these solar energy devices. They include solar energy collectors and photovoltaic modules, etc. In other words, the town's code is preempted by state statute in that no part of the town's code can be used to prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting installation of my client's requested renewable energy device. So as we have shown, the decision of the town administrator is preempted by state statute, preempted by interlocal agreement, and preempted by the town's code itself. We are requesting that decision of the town administrator be reversed and the permit forwarded to the city of Delray Beach for further consideration regarding the construction-related issues. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. My client's here too as well. We can answer any questions you might have.
The state statute section again, sir.
Yes. I think we included it in our packet.
You did, it's pretty lengthy, so.
Yeah, we actually
Trying to
redlined,
follow you while looking.
we actually redlined it for you to be a little ease. It's, chapter 163, 04, sub
Yeah,
1.
I see it.
And then when you go down toward the end,
One A,
to
right.
look to define what are the actual devices, you go to 193.624 sub 1 sub A. And it's, it might be interesting to note that none of the town's consultants' reports that were provided to us as a courtesy for this meeting actually included any, addressed at all any of the preemptions by state statute.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Reddick?
I'd like to start with a question of town attorney, which is making the assumption that this commission finds merit in what the appellant is asking for. What happens next? Do we go back and start all over again, or what?
Can I do a point of order before that question is answered?
Let the attorney answer my question.
But it's a point of order that addresses that. The
Well,
attorney,
let's just let this question go first, and then we'll get back to you, Mr. Rader. We certainly give you an opportunity to comment
thank you,
and
sir.
respond.
An administrative decision is being appealed.
Right.
The appeal presumably wants us to agree that this metal roof with the solar panels should be permitted. Let's assume we agree with that. Doesn't he have to go back, start all over again with that agreement in hand, or does he go to the architectural review and planning? Well, what would be the next step, the logical next step, making the assumption that we are sympathetic with this position?
I think the appeal is based upon the statute, and the argument is that the statute precludes the town from prohibiting the metal roof. So it's my belief that in the event you believe the administrative official was incorrect in his decision, then the roof would be allowed. Now, I suppose the ARPB could look at it from a design standpoint, but the primary issue is, as I understand it, Mr. Rader's argument is that the administrative official was incorrect in his interpretation because the state law allows these energy devices.
Okay, with that in mind, then dialing back to where we were 2 years ago in this very same situation, is my understanding that the appellant wanted to have a metal roof. And the basis for that desire was the fact that it was an old house, it was in disrepair, and that the house could not tolerate the heavier slate roof or tile roof. Now, I looked at the pictures that you had there, and this design looks like it's heavier than a tile roof. I mean, there is a lot of hardware in there. I guess the question I would ask is have you done the research to indicate whether or not the house could actually hold this new kind of roof?
yeah, so that's true. Well, metal roofs, as a general rule, one thing we submitted when we had that appeal, different roofs have different weights. One of the heaviest is the concrete or the clay tile. And
That's
it's
not the
asphalt.
question I'm asking, I'm sorry.
But I'm answering it my way. And as the asphalt, and then the metal roof is about 1/10 the weight. And when you put in the thermal, which is a sub-layer, and then you put on the photovoltaic layer on top, it is still much lighter than any other possible roof. But that, again, is a construction issue. That's an issue that's to be addressed by the city of Delray Beach by your own interlocal agreement. What the town is limited to is zoning issues or other non-construction related issues. That's our position here today.
We also mentioned the fact that as Mr. Ganger said, that originally it was that the roof could not support tile, and therefore under our own code, you could opt for a metal roof. Would you be open to the town sending an engineer to the house to justify that allegation?
Again, that's not what we're here, what you're doing. You seem to be going back to a situation a year and a half to 2
You
years
mentioned
ago.
it in your opening remarks. You referenced our code.
I didn't reference the incident a year and a half to 2 years ago.
And you specifically said that our code permitted this exception. And that was the section that you cited.
But your
which is that
code,
The roof could not withstand the tile.
even the allowance, the prohibition and the allowance are both subject to state preemption.
Well, assume we don't accept that argument, and we go back to your other argument, which is that under our own code, it could be permitted. Would you allow, or would your client allow a town engineer to inspect it to confirm the allocation?
Here today, again, we're bringing up similar to what happened a year and a half, 2 years ago. We are appealing a decision, specific decision by the town administrator who says that it's not allowed, and he cites the city's code, or the town's code. We're saying that code is preempted by state statute, therefore it should be sent to the town of Delray Beach for further construction consideration.
Okay, so I understand your point.
Mr. Mayor, might I suggest, if you don't have any further questions of the applicant or the appellant, that you hear from the town manager in regard to his position?
Sure, no, we'll get to that. I just wanted to
And
make
I
sure
can-
that we
I
are
can
clear on
reserve-
exactly what points you were relying on for your appeal. And I think you have now highlighted those.
Yeah, and what I want to do is I reserve some time to be in response to the town administrator's arguments that he might make.
We'll give you time to rebut, Mr. Rader. Any other questions with Mr. Rader on this point?
Do you have any information on the wind resistance properties of the metal roof that you have in mind?
Let me address your question this way. There are different ways to get Florida, or get product approval. You can have Florida product approval. It's actually, that's in statute 553.8425. And that's one of the erroneous observations by the town's consultant. There you can have Florida product approval, you can have NOA approval, which is Miami-Dade wind loads, or you can have local approval, which can be done through certification by a local architect or local engineer. They assumed, since we didn't have the first two, that we couldn't get it approved or was not approved. We are allowed to submit the third way to the local building department. That's exactly what we plan to do. And so,
You don't have any statistics on it or from the
no, actually,
manufacturer?
when it comes to the thermal layers and stuff that get applied, there are test results, and what we do is we submit a certification letter from an engineer, and that information is usually submitted along with it, and that's what gets considered by the local building department, which is the city of Delray Beach, and that's what they use to make their decision.
Other questions?
I
Thank you,
just,
Mr. Rader.
oh, can
I'm
I have
sorry.
one question about the roof tile, or the one you're going to use, and is it permitted in Florida?
The tile, you mean the,
Marty Miner's report, the conclusion?
now see, Marty Miter said it was not permitted.
Right,
It doesn't have Florida product approval, it doesn't have
Right.
NOA approval, but they do have test results, and they submit certification letters in other states. In Florida, actually, they submit letters, engineer certifications to get approval through the local approval method.
mm-hmm,
And that, they have test results, wind results that we use as part of that.
okay.
I have a
So
question.
we're just asking for the opportunity to be able to submit that information to the local building department as we're entitled and get it approved.
But I want Bill to go first, the town manager, and then I'll
Okay.
address
Oh,
it.
no, let's let the town manager respond.
I reviewed this as it relates to two primary issues, at least in my mind. One was the renewable energy concept, which, as you know, the town does allow for solar panels that are not visible from the roadway. That's the section of the code. So we have permitted solar panels in our town. I don't know how often or how many, but they have been presented to the town for approval and have been approved. The second thing that in my mind was analyzed was the fact that the material itself, the metal roof, is prohibited. And with that, it was my idea to, or review process, to deny the application. However, knowing that this has been a time-involved situation, I asked for a second opinion, that being Mr. Miner of Urban Design Kilday Studios. And in his report, it confirmed what I had concluded, and therefore after that process, the application was denied.
You want to hear from Mr. Minor?
I think so. Mr. Minor, would you care to comment on your report?
By the way, in regard to Mr. Thrasher's testimony, I recommend that you admit into the record his report, which is before you today in that regard.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make one comment. Mark Hanna, I'm an attorney for Mr. O'Hare. Mr. Randolph is kind of acting as a dual role here, and there's something in Florida called the doctrine of incompatibility regarding his position of advising the board, but also taking a position in this situation of essentially being the prosecutor and helping the town with the staff report and advising the staff on to deny this permit. The Board of Adjustment is supposed to be an impartial.
Mr. Hanna, I don't view it that way at all. I think he was giving us advice on procedure of something that's not done here every day. So I'll be happy to give you an opportunity to speak, but I'd like to hear from Mr. Minor right now.
Mr. Morgan, I was the chairman of the board of the
That's very
Board of
good.
Adjustment,
I
and we had
appreciate
two
that.
attorneys, one advising the Board of Adjustment.
Mr. Hanna, please,
Thank you, sir.
stand or sit down.
I'll
I will give you an
proffer the record.
opportunity to speak.
Okay,
I will
thank you,
do
sir.
it. But let's do it in order, okay? Show
Absolutely.
some respect. Yes, Mr. Minor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, Mark Minor, Senior Planner with Urban Design Kildare Studios. Mr. Thrasher asked me to look at this issue. I reviewed the application, and as mentioned before, there's two sections of the code that do not permit metal roofs in most occasions, and I'll touch on it. Section 7099 talks about, it expressly prohibits metal roofs with the except of unpainted copper when used as a decorative accent or a minor accessory structure. The roof in question is neither one of those. Under section 7187, the table of district standards, it prohibits metal roofs unless an engineer can certify that the existing roof will not support a tile roof. And within the application material provided, that engineer certification has been provided. It is, those two sections of the code is the basis for the recommendation for denial.
Marty, I didn't understand what you did, has not been provided? Or
Yeah, has not been provided.
Okay, I thought I heard you say has been provided. I was surprised.
Any questions?
Any questions of Mr. Minor? Based on the interpretation of the code. Actually,
Mr. Hanna.
Mr. Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regarding, it's called the doctrine of incompatibility. This board is supposed to be in this situation acting as fair, impartial tribunal hearing this appeal. Mr. Randolph, acting as the Board of Adjustment's attorney, is in conflict where he's also acting essentially as a prosecutor in this situation, arguing on behalf of the staff. He provided the staff with advice in writing the report and did input. There's emails where he had input into the decision-making process. In Ocean Ridge, Kenneth Spilius always recused himself, and we had our own attorney acting for and advising the board during these hearings. And I would just submit that you can check it later. It's called a doctrine of incompatibility, and Mr. Randolph should not be advising the board on anything. Otherwise, there's the appearance of a loaded deck, where you have the staff essentially advising the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ritter.
Is this rebuttal now, or?
I've got one more question for, we're in rebuttal, or are we still in board discussion?
Seems to me you're still in Mr. Thrasher's presentation, unless he's yielded and you're going to rebuttal. I mean, you may have questions of Mr. Thrasher. By the way, I mean, I'm not serving as a prosecutor here today, but I can advise you as to the procedures in regard to this and things that I think should be made part of the record.
Of course, we appreciate that. That's how I took it as well. With that in mind, I thought we had concluded with Mr. Thrasher, but are there any other questions?
I've got a question for Mr. Thrasher. I think he's aptly stated it, but
question is basically this, and I think he's answered it, is we do allow for, we have allowed in the past and currently do allow for a renewable energy technology as stated in the statute on roofs that are approved by the town under the code. And that's my question, we have and continue to do so.
That is correct.
And, you know, an example of that would be, I think I know a few, I have a neighbor that has one, would be a white through and through tile with a solar paneling on the side that doesn't face the street. And I think we've approved those on, I haven't personally since I've been on this board, to my knowledge, but those are in existence and have been approved by the town, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have solar panels around the pool and they face away from the street.
Anything else for the town manager?
I would just like to say that since mention was made of the past application regarding metal roofs, that you include as part of your record the petition for writ of certiorari that was filed by the applicant in regard to the denial of the metal roof before. And the decision of the circuit court in regard to that denying the petition for writ of certiorari, and that the decision of the 4th District Court of Appeal denying the petition for writ of certiorari simply be made part of the record.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, rebuttal then by Mr. Rader.
First off, regarding Mr. Minor, he referred to section 70-99 and 7187. Said those were the basis for his denial, be it as a staff report that goes on to address other issues, so we're a little bit confused as to what was the reason. We think it's blatantly obvious. These were issues that were raised at the prior, since y'all brought it up as raised at the prior appeal. 7187 supersedes 7099, so metal roofs are allowed. In his report, he said they were not allowed. And he said here again today about not permitted. But that's beside the point to this appeal. This appeal cites state statute, which preempts your code. So all this talk about 7099, all this talk about 7187, it doesn't matter. It's all preempted by state statute. While you may allow other homeowners to put up separate panels, separate freestanding panels on top of their roofs, if we come to you with the system, and it's an energy saving system based on renewable energy sources, according to state statute, it needs to go to the next level. Cannot be held up by the town based on your code. It needs to go to the next level, which is the city review for construction approval. This system, it's called the solar sandwich system. Just let me make this clear. It's not like these other systems you're talking about. Solar sandwich, the metal roof is integrated into it. It's a metal roof that is sandwiched between the thermal barrier underneath, which takes advantage of the heat generated by the metal roof to heat pipes. That was another point that Mr. Minor got wrong. He thought it was energy generating. It's a hot water generating system underneath. Then on top, you have overlaid on top of that a pliable photovoltaic membrane that gets adhered to the metal roof, and it can only be adhered to metal roofs. And this is a lot more cost effective than a rigid glass-like system, which, you know, it's up in panel boxes which get attached to your roof. It is actually part of the metal roof. And this is a system that we're applying for. It has nothing to do with the request for permitting that went through a year and a half ago. This is totally apart and separate. And it is a system that should be given the respect of state statute and should be passed on to the city of Delray Beach for them to review.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Rader's rebuttal?
Do you have, Mr. Rader, any examples, you may or may not, of this type of system being approved in any other coastal town or somewhere in this region?
No, this is new for this type of system. Actually, they have trouble getting approval of the metal on top of the thermal, but it's a 3-layered system. It can still have the photovoltaic on top of the metal. It's for us to take it to the city and try and get the full 3-part system approved. If we only get approved the photovoltaic on top of the metal, fine. And that, it has been approved and has been used in different Florida cities. We can get you that information. And it is done based on a local approval method, not done on a Florida product approval or NOA.
So you can't show us a picture of a house in a town within a 25-mile radius or such that has this on there just because of the newness of the product, basically.
Exactly. Well, yeah, you can find some in other communities, but in Florida.
Right.
But there's an awful lot of the two layers, the photovoltaic on top of the metal, but the photovoltaic on top of metal on top of thermal. We'd like to try and do the thermal as part of it too, so we can actually get, say, a double whammy, so to speak, on what the benefits would be of the roof.
For whatever it's worth, I personally commend anyone who's trying to figure out ways to be more efficient with energy use. I also believe that Gulfstream should not be a place that says, well, try it someplace else before you bring it here, because maybe it's a great idea and it should be here first. I am also I recognize that if you're trying something that hasn't been tried before, there's always risk. It may not work. I think Donna is absolutely right that, you know, we have no basis to determine whether or not it has better wind-resistant capabilities, and one would hate to have I was told when I put, and Donna, maybe you had the same thing, I put one of these things on for a hot water heater, and I was told to take it out before a hurricane. Literally have the whole thing ripped up, pipes closed and everything else before a hurricane. And I was willing to take that risk, but you know, I don't think this commission should be approving something that actually puts the homeowner or the neighbors at peril if it hasn't been demonstrated that the product works.
To answer your question,
Yeah.
that's what approval through the Delray Beach Building Department, they will not approve it unless you can prove that.
With all due respect, sir, I deal with the Delray Beach Building Department all the time. The Delray Beach Building Department is in themselves in kind of in turmoil. I really would like to rely on a higher authority, if that's the case, for something as novel as this. And yet, I don't want to tell you that I personally don't think this is a good idea. I frankly think it may be a terrific idea. Was that, would you, if you had something to say, listen to you. What is it you want to say?
Oh, sorry, I can barely hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is this not working? Sorry, is this
Well,
not working?
thank you. I'm ringing in my ear, and that's a hard time hearing you.
Okay. You had something to say. I didn't know what you were saying.
I was advising Mr. Rader on some information that would make you feel more comfortable with the history of this system of putting photovoltaic film on a metal roof. It's not a new technology. It's been around a long time. It has had NOA approvals in the past. It's not like we're experimenting. This isn't the beta version. This is established technology, and it's a recognized renewable energy device.
But it does not, but Mr. Rader said he cannot give an example of where we could go look at it and see what it looks like.
In fact, we didn't ask the manufacturer for examples, but the way they get it approved in Florida is by doing the interlocal approvals, where the engineer certifies it based on their test results and based on a letter from their engineer, which we have a letter from their engineer, which then we then give to our engineer, who then looks at test results, certifies our drawings, we submit to the city, and we submit to the city and try and get it approved.
But
That's
that's
the
not much being
process.
said, and that's all fine. The real issue here is whether or not our code is going to be vitiated by the interlocal agreement with Delray or the state statutes that you've mentioned.
I think you're right. The question is, the
Regardless
state
of what you're
statute.
proposing to put on the roof, frankly.
Exactly, you have a right to look at zoning and other non-construction issues, which all this discussion's on construction issues. Does it fit within zoning or does it? I think we've shown it doesn't fit, it does fit within your zoning, and it's actually preempted by the state statute. Send it on to the next step and let the city of Delray Beach approve it. Even your own interlocal agreement says you're only, again, supposed to be looking at those zoning issues, not the construction issues.
I think that's the issue before us. Are there any other questions, Mr. Rader, on that point? Yes, sir.
On that point, no, I have questions, Mr. Rader.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Rader, the manufacturer of this material is that which is listed in the material provided? Is that correct?
No, we actually didn't, which is why we're kind of amazed. We didn't list a manufacturer. We listed diagrams which show the generic type system.
May I ask the name of the manufacturer you're referring to?
Actually, the metal roof is Engler. That's just a metal roof. The thermal, which is underneath, can be a number of different manufacturers.
Understood,
And then the exterior is Sunlight, the photovoltaic.
understood. Is the membrane attached to the entire surface of the metal roof?
It's attached between the seams.
Is the color of the membrane identifiable?
The membrane is usually blue or dark blue. It turns colors between dark blue, almost black, and then the roof would be dark blue.
What causes the color to change?
It's the heat.
And what is the color of the ridge?
Well, yeah, it's,
Am I
no,
not making myself clear?
well, we're trying to get the metal roof and the membrane to match. They're blue, it's dark blue or blue, and it may turn black, but the ridge, the metal roof that the membrane gets attached to can be any color you want it to be. We wanted to get them to match. But then again, that's an aesthetic issue, and that's having a code, or code aesthetics, which is superseded by state statute.
Yeah,
But we're willing to work
under
with
your
the town.
argument, it wouldn't matter what color it is, what shape it is, what design it is. You can put it on the roof,
That is basically, yes, sir, that's basically what the state statute says.
okay?
But if I might add, Mr. Morgan, we're here to cooperate with the town. If the town decides they want it pink, I'll make it pink. My motivation here is to fight climate change, be a good citizen, do as much renewable energy on that house as I can. I'm spending a lot of money to be as self-sufficient as possible. I think everybody's got their responsibility. Whatever it takes to comply and still have my film, I'm willing to do.
Thank you for that.
Just one more question. As the color of the membrane changes, does the color of the ridge painting change as well?
No,
Any other questions?
Do you know how thick the roof is? There's a diagram with the schedule of materials that shows the layers. What is the thickness? And how do they seam the ends to close it in, to enclose it?
actually, the client might be better able to answer that. It's a 22 gauge roof, metal roof, but then the material that goes on top of it. Chris, you got an answer? Just make sure you heard that.
I'm sorry.
Asked about the membrane, how thick is the membrane that goes on the metal roof?
Oh, it's approximately a 1/4 inch. It's very thin Teflon membrane with a butyl adhesive that's been tested for adhesion, and I think wind loads up to 240 miles an hour.
And then, and that's the top membrane. How about the whole structure with the coils and everything? So how thick will the end result be?
Are you asking me about the photovoltaic film?
Yeah, all the layers,
Oh.
it's,
Well,
the solar sandwich.
From the metal surface up would be a 1/4 inch.
Mhm.
The entire photovoltaic film is only a 1/4 inch thick, or maybe 3/16. Below the metal roof is your standard waterproofing membrane insulation and the runners of the thermocollector water lines. But that wouldn't have changed the apparent elevation of the roof from the street. It'd still look the same as it does now.
So it won't be thicker.
Oh, it's not gonna be some thick sandwich.
It looks from this
The-
diagram, it looks,
The common term, solar sandwich, refers to the entire roof system from the rafters up.
but the coils are in there too. How large are they?
I'm sorry.
The coils
Oh, that's just 1/2 inch pipe, or 3/8 ID pipe, so it's only like
Looks very
this.
small.
And hot water circulates through those pipes?
It starts out cold,
I understand
Takes-
that.
yeah, sorry.
It gets hot.
it
and
gets
then
hot, goes to
your
a thermal storage tank.
Storage
Yes.
tank, which in turn heats your hot water.
Yes, it's
And
a
so
backup tank for hot water.
What you're willing to do, I guess, is to invest in probably more expensive roofing system in order to save money on your hot water as well as be a good citizen and all of the above.
Yeah,
I was trying to figure out the economics. You're paying $37,000 for a roof. You have to put a roof on sooner or later.
yes.
And what you're trying to do is get a double dip here. You put a roof on and you get a benefit that in turn helps pay for itself by heating your hot water. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, From my observation, renewable energy is not a economic
I
genius
guarantee you,
decision.
it isn't.
It's
You will
always
not,
a
you will
loss,
not
but
pay out on your investment. What is the, when this is installed, what is the guaranteed life? Do you have a, in other words, what kind of, and I'm asking this maybe for anyone else in the room that would ever even consider doing this on their own homes.
the technology now making, what's it called? Polypropylene tubing, which is now used for plumbing throughout the country, has a life of 40 years. But I would point out that when you pay $50,000 for a Mercedes, that's obsolete in 15 years. Maybe not a Mercedes, but my Ford. So making an investment in something we know is going to someday be replaced is sort of comparable to any roof in town. Shingle roofs are guaranteed or usually warranted for 12 to 15 years. Concrete tile roofs 40 years, although most concrete tile roofs are replaced in 20 years. So it's all a temporary solution.
I wasn't really debating the subject. I was really trying to understand, when you first saw this system and said, gee, that would be good for me, the question I would ask is, and you would ask it, I'm sure, is what's the life of this system? In other words, is this something that's going to degrade quickly because the metal will rust, or who knows what it is? I just don't think, again, good for you for trying something new, but also good for us that, if this thing becomes a liability, that's not good for you or the town or your neighbors. So I'm just trying to get an understanding. Is there anything in this system that says it's terribly different from any other roofing system that one might put on the same house in the same location?
Yeah, I anticipate the functionality to be 20 to 30 years. However, advances in technology, I think, will make this system obsolete only because there are much more effective technologies that will be invented. And it's very possible in 20 years it'll make economic sense to tear the whole thing off and do something even better. But I'm willing to do that.
Any other questions of Mr. O'Hara or his attorney relative to the issues on appeal?
I just might offer a little footnote. We talk about these 3 layers, the 2-layer sandwich above and below the metal roof. The layer below, the thermal below, is really personal. That's his personal pocketbook. The layer above can actually generate electricity back to the town.
The composition of it really doesn't seem to be the issue. The issue is whether, as you stated rather eloquently, the interlocal agreement and the code are initiated by the state statute. It seems to me that's the basis of your appeal, and that's what we should be voting on.
One final comment.
Yes, sir.
Reiterate the fact that my denial and renewal of the permit had nothing to do whatsoever with the idea of prohibiting the installation of any energy-based renewable energy.
Right, and you said that, and I think the appellant acknowledges that we do offer, the code allows renewable energy equipment on roofs. The issue was whether this particular roof, being a metal one, would be permitted. Any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to sustain the appeal.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, does the public get a chance to speak on this application?
Mr. O'Boyle, you may speak. Let's withhold.
I withdraw the motions because of being interrupted.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I'll just be very, very brief. Mr. Ganger, Mr. Chairman, had made the comment that Delray Beach is in turmoil. That being the case, it becomes concerning to me because if they're in turmoil and they cannot properly review building plans, then they put us all into harm's way. And perhaps, I don't know what exactly, I used to know, the interlocal agreement says, but if there's a termination provision or if there's some type of remedial provision, you may want to look at that because, of course, we don't want to have an operation in turmoil making major decisions such as roofs.
May I respond, because turmoil was meant to mean they have lost some people. They have an excessive workload relative to the people they've lost. I was really simply saying that there is a risk that they will not do the full job that they might otherwise have done.
That's exactly what I
That's,
said.
I think if you're gonna ask that question of Palm Beach County, who used to do our permitting, it's the same there too.
I understand. I think you and I are saying identically the same thing. I know very little about what Mr. O'Hare is looking for. I do know that the interlocal agreement does say that the construction elements have been yielded to Del Rey. So I think this board really should not be getting your fingers into that pie. As to the state statute and the local ordinances, I haven't looked at it and I really don't know. What I do know is the man hasn't had a roof for a long time. I think we all agree that we're seeing more and more metal roofs. And I think perhaps this would be a good opportunity. He's doing it a green roof, a metal roof. They're highly attractive nowadays. And I would ask the board to perhaps, maybe this is the time that they break their maiden. And I thank you all for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am?
May I speak for a moment, please?
You may.
Good morning, Nancy Whipplesmith.
You can probably pull that mic
Good
down.
morning, Nancy Whip. No. You
You
what?
want to sing?
You definitely don't want me to do that. I don't need a microphone. Just one question. You might ask to see a picture of it. We thought about doing a sustainable roof in California, and we couldn't find one that was not going to be really offensive for our neighbors, and so we elected not to do it. We wanted to do it, A, to be sustainable, but B, because you have hurricanes, we have earthquakes. We thought it would be great to have some of our own energy in case of a natural disaster, but we decided that we would cause a neighborhood disaster and complaints if we put it up, so we walked away from it. If you have an opportunity to see photographs before you vote, I would recommend it.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I rise to a point of order. I had forgot to say this and I apologize. But was
Could you go back to the
anyone
microphone, please? Only because it's the only way you can
That's
record
fine.
your
Yes.
comments.
Again, I apologize, but I meant to ask this when I was here. Was anyone sworn in?
Good question.
No.
Error.
I think you need
Don't
to
think
start
I were.
again.
Let's do it, if we can, a retroactive swearing in.
Stand, those that have spoken or that want to speak, please stand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
You do?
I do.
And in regard to everything that's been said,
Right.
I do.
Thank you, Mr. O'Boyle. Any other comments from the public? If not, then let's turn to a motion on this.
I think Mrs. Williston's comment deserves an answer. Is there a picture? Other than the one that was in our packet?
I asked for an example
Yep.
broadly, and again, it was stated, I guess it was by the applicant, it was too new, hadn't been in the state. Not to misquote the
Sample
applicant.
equipment attached to our packet.
Yeah, there's sample equipment, but as far as the finished product, it looks almost exactly like any other metal roof, except it's just a little bit thicker because it's got the thermal down underneath, which is sandwiched.
Okay, thank you.
why don't we, because of what Mr. O'Boyle said, and I thank him for pointing that out, ask for any ex parte communications in regard to this matter before you have a vote.
Have there been any ex parte communications by any commissioners relative to this application? No?
None.
None? I think we, Ms. Borden?
May I just ask a question? I
I guess, have you been sworn in?
No, I swear to tell the whole truth, nothing
Thank you, sir.
but. If I'm hearing what's going on, I'm hearing a situation where it's been narrowed down to one issue, whether or not there's a preemption by state law. Is it the practice of the commission to make a decision on an issue like that without the commission and the town having the opportunity to have a legal opinion that is a legitimate way to view it? There has been preemption?
Well, it seems to me there was a finding made by the staff that's been appealed. Argument was made by counsel for the applicant and responded to by staff. I think that it's in our.
Just a question of how you usually handle something like this. I mean, I had a legal opinion here on behalf of the appellant. I just wonder if, is it customary to rely on that opinion rather than having your own? That's my question.
A layman's answer to the question is, I don't think this has ever happened before in the amount of time that I've been here. And I guess I get back to the first question that I asked of the town attorney is what's next? Because really what they're asking for is the opportunity to be able to take this concept to the Delray Beach Building Department, who will have to decide on our behalf whether or not it's constructible. And then it comes back to the Architectural Review and Planning Board, who has to decide whether or not it meets the broader criteria, compatibility and so forth. So it's kind of a step-by-step process.
I don't think so. I think that what they're saying is, as Mr. Boardman described it rather succinctly, that our code is not relevant to this, as long as there's renewable energy equipment to be placed on that roof. And I think Mr. Rader acknowledged it. Frankly, it doesn't matter what they put on there, so long as it would be otherwise compliant with building codes. And that's the issue before us. Now, it seems to me if you're persuaded by that argument and the statutory documentation that was included in our package, then you can vote in that direction. If you're not, based on the testimony of the town manager and Mr. Meyer, then you would vote in the other direction.
Well, it's certainly a matter of public record that the state does encourage energy renewable building code. That's baked into what the state, it's in the policy. If Mr. Hager had still been here, he would probably have supported the fact that this is something that the state wants done.
There was testimony that we do follow that statutory direction as well. We do allow energy saving equipment on roofs. Procedures for it. The question is, do we void the code with respect to roofing altogether because of the renewable energy statute and the interlocal agreement cited by Mr. Ray?
Is it a true fact that the state takes precedence over any of our codes? That's the only question.
Well, the language of this.
What was the question?
Is it accurate that state statutes take precedence over local ordinances?
I think that's what Mr. Boardman.
Yes, but can we establish something? Are you in executive session now? Have you heard all from the public, and have you heard all the rebuttal, and have you heard from your staff?
I believe we have. At the position of clarifying the motion.
In answer to your question, yes, state statutes can preempt local ordinances. The issue has been stated, I think, by your chair, is that you look at the ordinance that's been, statute that's been cited, 16304, which says that notwithstanding any provision of this chapter or other provision of general or special law, the adoption of an ordinance by a governing body, as those terms are defined in this chapter, which prohibits or has the effect of prohibiting the installation of solar collectors, clotheslines, or other energy devices based on renewable resources is expressly prohibited. So you should apply that law based upon the evidence that you've heard here this morning and make a determination as to whether or not the appellant is correct that the state law precludes Mr. Thrasher from having made the decision he made to not allow this particular route.
Does that clarify for you?
Absolutely.
Let's proceed. There was a motion being formed.
Forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, somebody else want to take a stab at it?
I have a quick question, try not to delay, Mr. Mayor. On the appeal from, as part of this process, is there, the final decision has to be made today, Mr. Randolph? As far as the vote on this issue by this board is, hearing the appeal?
If you're not prepared, based upon the evidence that you've heard, to make a decision today, you could defer it for further testimony, but it should be based upon further testimony and not in regard to any independent investigation that you might make in regard to this. It should be based upon the testimony that's been presented by the appellant and by the evidence that has been presented by the town manager.
Thank you.
And so that's really the issue. Looking on page 1, the section town attorney read is whether the adoption of an ordinance that is our code prohibits, or has the effect of prohibiting solar collectors and other clotheslines and other energy devices based on renewable energy. Does our code do that? Do you believe it does? You can vote in one direction. If you believe that it does not prohibit, then vote in the other.
Well, I think there, the issue may very well be, that portion of our code that says it must not be visible from the street.
That's not the issue. The issue
I realize that's not the issue, but I'm trying to think a step ahead, which is if one were able, I mean, depending on which way the house is, where's the south, and where do you want to face? You know, what are we getting ourselves in for here?
The issue is whether or not this applicant could heat water through an energy-saving piece of equipment on his roof in the town of Gulfstream. And we've had testimony that indeed he could, but not by this method, because it conflicts with the code's prohibition against metal roofs. That's it. The applicant cites the state statute that council and I just read, and says that he believes that code provision is a prohibition. Town manager says, no, it's not a prohibition, we allow it, just not with a metal roof. That's what is before us right now. So if someone would like to phrase the motion on the appeal of this administrative decision, I would appreciate it.
I'll make a motion to deny the applicant's appeal to place a solar sandwich metal roof on his home in the town of Gulfstream pursuant to the application before us.
And would you in the motion state your reason for the record?
The reason being that the town of Gulfstream, under its local ordinances, does allow for installation of solar collectors, clotheslines, and other energy devices based on renewable resources.
And you also mentioned that we asked that be moved into the record the writ of certiorari on the past application and the town manager's report.
We asked to be put into the record the writ of certiorari in the town manager's report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Read it.
Commissioner Ganger?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
No.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Thank you very much. Move on to reports. Mr. Brand.
Kenny Brown, a quick update on where we are with the undergrounding project. We have installed there are basically three types of lines that we're installing for the power company. There's a main feeder line, then there's...
I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. O'Boyle. Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Brand, would you?
There are three types of lines we're installing for FPL. There are main feeder lines that will run up and down Ocean. There are lateral primary voltage lines that will run around the neighborhoods and serve transformers and serve houses. And then there's service lines from those transformers to the houses. We have pulled all the cable for the main feeder line along A1A all the way through to the south end of the project. So from Pelican North to Gulfview, that cable is being spliced and connected up now. We have pulled some of the transformer feeder line, and we'll start setting transformers next week. So we have multiple facets of the job going on. The boring operations are about 95% complete. We do have a few left to do. So we're very much on target with that. The communications conduits have all been installed. So we're about to cease the blocking of the roads for the boring equipment, that kind of stuff, in the excavation process. Many of the concrete precast pads for transformers, switches, boxes, etc., have been installed up and down Ocean. You've probably seen them on the side of the road. So the project is moving right along. We're accelerating the construction process, still continuing to work towards our schedule and not be delayed.
What's your estimate for the completion of phase one of this project, at least from the underground portion prior to FP&L connecting lines?
I didn't bring my schedule today.
Just approximately.
I believe it's the end of, well, phase one FPL portion, I believe is the end of August. That's in the schedule. We're anticipating, once we complete the FPL portion and all the conduit installation, we'll have, the telephone company will come in and pull their new lines in. They will make all their connections, and then they will remove the overhead from the poles. Comcast will also do the same, and they have been not as quick to complete their work as our contractors would be. So there's a lot of pushing and shoving and calls for that, and that will take the Jupiter Colony 250 houses. It took about 2 years, but I know that the phone company, we did a lot of probing, prodding, and they've already been contacting me to let them know as soon as possible when this conduit is in so they can start. So they're interested in moving faster in this project.
So you're saying that the conduit for phase one will be completed by the end of August?
I think the
FP&L will have...
I think the FPL work, as far as the installation of the underground and the cutover, will be completed then. And that's done by our contractor. Now, FPL will come back and remove the poles after Comcast and AT&T have vacated the poles.
Any other questions?
Danny, those large, look like burial grounds, those big holes with their concrete, what goes in them? That is like thinking at the end of the golf course, on the south end of the golf course. There's now quite deep. I would say, looks like it's about 5 feet deep. What goes in that?
At the intersection of North Road and Ocean,
yeah.
we have 3 pieces of equipment that are going in there. One is a capacitor bank, and it's on the northwest corner. There's an open delta transformer bank, which is 2 of the single-phase transformers sitting on the pad that's on the south side. And on the east edge of that is a Vista switch, which is a switch that the main feeder lines go into and the local transformer feeding lines connect to. Those are the pieces of equipment. The chamber that you see in the ground is that size because the feeder cables coming in there require a large bending radius. So they need room to come in and sweep up into an elbow position or connection position. But there will be 3 boxes on top of the ground. Those boxes are set back away from North Road and away from A1A to provide for landscaping and aesthetic treatment.
Nothing else? Yes, sir.
Danny, what's the status of the north?
Pardon?
What's the status of the second phase?
FPL is working on their design at this point. We've provided them information and they've had it now for a month or so or more. But as of last Wednesday, the report from the FPL rep was that they are working on it.
They are working on it?
Yeah, typically they would work on it for about 4 months, provide us a conceptual, we'd review it, make any comments, changes, things like that, and then they would go back and take a couple of months to tweak it and get it refined, and then they would come forward with a cost, a binding cost, and a final plan.
Thank you.
And I believe phase 2 you had estimated last time, you're looking at the end of December 2015, end of 2015 to complete the project.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, we haven't changed that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Report from the town manager.
I have no report.
Thank you. The ARPB is meeting, next meeting, May 27th. Will not be meeting in August, but their regularly scheduled meetings are set forth. We have a report from Finance Director.
Just as submitted, try to answer any questions you might have.
If no questions, except for this submitted. Police Chief's report. Any questions, discussion? If not, we'll accept that as submitted. Okay. The special magistrate appointment. Since we lost our special magistrate, there is apparently someone else who is willing to serve in that capacity. Mr. Thrasher, would you tell us a little bit about Mr. Brandenburg?
Well, actually, this is a recommendation or a suggestion from our attorney, Mr. Randolph. I believe Mr. Brandenburg has been around the area for quite some time. And there is a communication from on the back side of this page in regards to him. It would be my recommendation to engage Mr. Brandenburg as our special magistrate.
Mr. Randolph, you're familiar with Mr.
I know Mr. Brandenburg well. He has been working in local governmental law in Palm Beach County for many years. He used to be Palm Beach County attorney, and he acts as a magistrate in several other municipalities within Palm Beach County, as well as having represented local government.
Good. Is there a motion to engage?
So moved.
Second.
Let the record show that he is quoted $225 per hour.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Ganger.
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley.
Yes.
Commissioner White.
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwine.
Yes.
Mayor Morgan.
Yes. Next, ARPB, we discussed this briefly at the last commission meeting. We now have another applicant, and I think we should try to make a decision on filling the alternate space in the ARPB. Sorry, we've got Mr. Stanley Rabine, we have Catherine O'Neill, and we have Curtis Roach. Any discussion?
Not really. I know Curtis Roach the best. And he's here.
Yeah. I would have to say that these are three very capable candidates. And we have, one of them lives in, at least that I know of, lives in a multifamily dwelling unit. And as far as I know, we have not had an architectural review and planning board review of anything that relates to multifamily in a long time. I think the last thing was the roof on the building at the corner. And as much as I would love to have heard input into general issues that relate to architectural review decisions, I honestly think that the people who are perhaps better qualified are the two gentlemen who are of the three. I think we have two to pick. I know them both. They're both very capable people.
I have one question when we're deciding for the summer meetings, for May, June,
Yep.
July, not July, we don't have a meeting, but September, are both of them here or willing to come back if needed? So we don't get in a position where we don't have a quorum?
Yes, them not. I noticed that Mr. Roach does have two homes up north.
Yeah.
That he lists on his,
But of course, this is for second alternate.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's a
know,
good point, because
just-
people tend to move on rather quickly.
Yeah.
but
to the
an
ARP.
alternate is only temporary, usually.
No, it's a good point, but it's a commitment as well.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who is submitting an application has to recognize when our hearing dates are, and it is a commitment of time and effort. And I don't think any of the three would have submitted their application without having considered that. I know Mr. Roach. I think he would be an excellent addition to the ARPB, having just left it, knowing the personalities on that board. I can speak very highly of him.
in addition to which, the other candidate, for the record, has been really quite a participant in Gulfstream events, particularly as I understand, the election, sitting on our election board forever. I mean, whenever you walk in, he knows you're there. And I think that's someone who obviously cares a lot about the city. And has an interesting and diverse business experience.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's a difficult decision, because you have qualified people.
We're fortunate to have that.
It's wonderful. It used to be so difficult to get people, and now we have more than enough, which is great.
Well, the only decision maker could be that Mr. Roach is here. I always think people are here, get nominate, right, Patsy?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point.
Mrs. O'Neill was here.
Yes, Kathy was here, and she is vitally interested in helping in the community, and we've just got to take her up on it at some point in time. I just think this is a specific decision made at a specific point in time. There'll be plenty of time for her, and I think we, as best we can, try and get her engaged on other.
There will be another opening very short. I mean, just by chance, we have 3 people. I mean,
Right.
we usually are just,
ARPB opens up with some degree of frequency. So, do you have any consensus on this? The inclinations?
Mr. Roach might want to help with the finance ad hoc committee.
what?
Ad hoc finance committee, Mr. Roach might. It looked like from his resume.
Is Stan here? Guess not.
Standards. He's not
Well,
here.
so he handles by motion, that's correct?
You can do it by motion, or you can do it by ballot. If you do it by ballot, you have to sign your ballot, so however.
Let's go with the general consensus. Joan?
You know, I think both of them are very, very capable, probably all three are very, very capable. I would just say because Mr. Roach is here and is interested, and I think he'd make a very good choice. And I've seen what he did to his renovation of his house here, and it's beautiful. So there you go.
Don?
I don't know any of the applicants personally, so it's hard for me to judge. When I saw Catherine O'Neill, the thing that struck me is that seems to be from a different area, you get representation from a different faction. But not knowing anyone personally, all their resumes, you know, I do believe that the two gentlemen have a more extensive resume, but they all look qualified to me.
Okay. Don?
I know probably all three equally as little, although Mr. Roach is a neighbor. I do think I give weight to someone that's actually conducted a project recently under the current code to sit on ARPB is one of the determining factors. Mr. Roach, I believe, has done that.
Don?
That's where I started. I would move Stan Levine and Curtis Roach be appointed to the Architectural Review and Planning Board.
I think it's only one.
One.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We just need
I'm
one.
sorry.
That would be good if we could just.
Yeah, I absolutely thought that was the case, that that we were needing to do too. Then I would ask for Mr. Roach because some of the reasons associated.
I'll second that.
Rita?
Commissioner Gager?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes.
Commissioner Orthwein?
Yes.
Mayor Morgan?
Yes. Congratulations. All right, any other matters for the commissioners? Town manager? If not, we'll adjourn this meeting. Let's take a 5-minute break and return.